In this video, I'm going to show you how to play the Silenforc Voiceless Voice archetype releasing in Phantom Nightmare. This is probably the best ritual deck in 2024, and I think what might be the best ritual deck period. So this is really exciting. I'm going to show you guys how to play it, combos you can do, some replays against other meta decks, as well as tech cards that you can use in this archetype. Let's get into the replays first, and I'll show you a little bit of how the deck plays and what you can expect using it. I am using a bit of a spicy tech in this as well, so you've been warned. Let's get into the replays. In this first replay, I'm playing against Dinos. The Dino player is actually going first as well, and so they will just go ahead with their board. Now, while they're doing that, let's break down the cards. So you have Novox, the main character of the Silenforc archetype. On summon, it can place a Silenforc spell or trap card continuous into the ST zone. Because it says place, that also means it dodges anti-spell. So that is a big deal. Fire King players will play anti-spell to beat the Soul Release, which is very popular in the OCG and is already popular here. So keep that in mind. When your Light Warrior or Dragon Ritual Monster is special summoned, you can special this from the grave. So a lot of recursion of this one card. The Ritual Monster himself is amazing. Skull Guardian, the Silenforc Protector. This card is an omni-negate. Plain and simple, it's a classic omni-negate, and he becomes 4100 if Novox is on the field or graveyard. A little bit annoying that it has to be Novox, but that is the style of the archetype. It is based around the level 1 monster, and then on summon it can search more cards from the Silenforc archetype, and there is a 1 card combo for the deck, which is great. We'd love to see that. With Saphira's Retrain, this card is insane because it can let you dump a ritual spell into the graveyard, which is generic, and then add a Light Warrior or Dragon Ritual Monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. But the best part is this can be banished and perform a ritual summon. A continuous spell, which is really powerful. The Silenforc Barrier or Voiceless Barrier, which is a once per turn searcher. This card is really important. You want to make sure you can see this card as much as possible. This card is actually really nice. It's like a Swords of Blacker, but not exactly. It will pop cards the opponent controls up to how many Light Warrior, Dragon, Ritual Monsters you control. So very restrictive, but it's actually pretty decent. The first effect is actually why it's really good, because you get to freely special summon the Saurus Retrain if you didn't get to do it his normal way, and he is a free special summon for any ritual monster in the Silenforc archetype for free. So you can actually cheat out the Skull Guardian Retrain yourself, and the Silenforc ritual spell lets you ritual summon a light ritual monster. So there we go, a quick wrap up of the Skull Guardian Novox monsters. Let's get into the replay. So the dinosaur player has created their board successfully. They have an Appaloosa with, I want to say, 2 negates. They have a Savage Dragon omni-negate. They have a Forbidden Droplets face down, and they have a Pterodon, which could be a Pancratops, and they have a Conductor and a Nibiru. But I break this board, so let's get into it. Let's see what our first action is, and I've already spoiled the spicy tech that I'm running, which is Dogmatica Albazoa. It's more of a fun way to rip apart the opponent's extra deck, whilst at the same time sending cards from your extra deck to the graveyard in the form of Matrix, which can send Herald. Herald is not once per turn to search ritual spells or monsters, and this guy will not leave the field because he's unaffected by extra deck monsters effects, and it's 4k. So we start with Prosperity, hopefully baiting a negate, because we want to get our actual cards resolved. Let's activate Disciple. They let this go through. Nadir Servant, send the Entis, pop the back row, and of course, because of the Lost World, we actually are unable to target monsters on the field except tokens, which is very annoying, but you know, we have the token and we don't play Link Spider to get rid of it. They do negate this with Appaloosa, and then we get to summon the Maximus, but the Conductor quickly sets him face down, and obviously we would have loved to resolve this because we can send Herald, we can send Entis, we can send Garura. Prosperity was negate, so we could have drawn through Garura. But you get my point. This card would have been great as an engine piece, and is one of the tech cards you do run in this deck, which kind of seems like a staple, which is Nadir Servant at 3 and Maximus. Moving on to the replay, Pterodon will resolve, bring out Dino, giving us another token. We'll find out whether that's good or bad. Now this card is pretty great because when it's activated, searches the Dogmatica Ritual or the Ritual spell. Now of course, any ritual deck, you know the limitations, which is you need the spell and the monster, as well as the monster for the tribute. So next up, what we do is activate the Calamity, summon the Albazoa. They try to Appaloosa negate, but it's not going to affect him because he's unaffected, and we get to wipe their extra deck monsters back into the main deck to reset the board. They have a Conductor which they've already used. They have the Disciple, but we can, like I said, guys, there we go. Matrix, send Herald, find the piece we're missing, and ritual summon Skull Guardian. So there we go. This is why I like this engine, and even going second, which I don't intend for it to be used that way, it does some pretty good damage. I actually love that. It's a 4k beast stick. Let's go. Clean the board. They have a Nibiru in hand, we have the omni-negate, it doesn't matter, and there we go, the opponent surrender. So I feel like that was a pretty nice deconstruction of the dinosaur board, so that was insane. Albazoa putting in the work. In this replay, we're going up against Salamgreat, which is another strong opponent in the next format because of Fire Princess. and the Salamgreat cards themselves. Bonfire, fire support, you name it. But we are going first here, and we start pretty nice with a Garura draw into Maximus, into send and set up all the ritual stuff we want. This is pretty interesting what we're going to do with Alpazar. Once again, this feels like a replay showcasing Alpazar more than the Silenforc, but you see how efficient we are with the ritual spells and advantage we get. Let's continue the replay. That will help us confirm the Skull Guardian omni-negate, and there we go. Like I said, the Saphira retrain giving us the free ritual summon. Silenforc Novox coming back to the field, searching for the Soravis retrain, the free special summon, which can tag itself out into the big Soravis. We're ready for what the opponent is going to do here. And this is the card I was talking about. This is, of course, the Swords of Blackout. For every ritual, warrior or dragon you control, you get to pop cards they control, as well as the trap card. And we tend to have levels higher than 12, so we could easily special Albazoa. But in this case, you can already see what we've done is we've sent Lulu-Willith in the end phase because I'm a Cartesia. Cartesia summon Guigno. And here is my deck profile for Silenforc. Let's start with the monsters. So you play the Trias Hierarchia package with Diviner of the Herald. And stay tuned for the combo later on in the deck profile where I'll show you why we're playing certain cards in here and why they're really valuable. So with Trias Hierarchia, you can of course tribute Diviner to special it, and when Diviner is tributed, it can special a level to a lower fairy, which is Novox. You saw how powerful Maximus is. It's also a disruption against the opponent. We have the one-off Soravis. Now this card in testing is actually harder to summon than I thought, because you do need 2 spells. One of them has to be a ritual spell in the hand or grave. He does the drop at 1 anyway. He's a level 7, so he can do rank 7 plays as well. They have 3 of the Saphira, which is the ritual spell summoner. Also dumps a ritual spell to set up the Soravis Sage, as well as of course adding a ritual monster to the hand, which is so busted. This card is actually really strong. And then we have the 3 Diviners, which basically is Novox, and they actually kind of look similar. Send either the Trias, or you can send Herald to get your combo started. And more importantly, with that play, you're also going to set up, you know, potentially a level 6 tuner, although we haven't really explored synchros. Next up is of course Novox, and it can be used for the entire tribute for a warrior or dragon ritual. And then here we go. Here are the ritual monsters that I'm running. We're going to run 2 Skull Guardians. I feel like the second one, you know, you really need to use. The first one is actually enough, and they do have recursion. A lot of these cards do shuffle things in. And then you have Soravis himself as a one-off. I really want to run that too, actually, because people impeming or veiling or even SP Little Knights effective banish. Soravis is actually like a really cool card in the modern meta game, but no one is going to run it, whereas in this deck it has a really good use. Of course, it can only negate special summons. It's basically like a Solemn Judgment. Next up is Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon. So the reason why you play this is it's the only non-archetype light dragon or warrior ritual, which is actually kind of insane. You can negate a spell, and then you can special a Odd Eyes monster from the extra deck. Now there is an omni-negate option, but we don't really run pendulums in the extra deck, so we're not going to really get to use the full capabilities. You can play things like the Odd Eyes, Clear Wing, Synchro monsters as well. And then we have 3 Nidus Servant. This just gets the package going by sending an extra deck monster like the Garura, such the Maximus. Whoever we send gets banished for Maximus, and then Maximus will send Herald and perhaps another extra deck monster. We have 1 of the ritual spell, which is not great. I think this card should be at 2, but at the same time you can also break. If you draw this, you might be in trouble, as Saphira cannot resolve. Maybe that means we run 2, I'm not sure. 3 of the spell. This is the most important card. It's a once per turn searcher. While you have Novox on the field and a light ritual monster, your opponent cannot target them with card effects. They have to attack the rituals first, but the ritual is 4100. So you see my point, it's quite nasty. Well, this deck on the face of it does not seem that powerful, but through invisible effect like the Silenforce barrier makes it seem really good. And the Silenforce Authority, which can basically, you know, recursion and special your Silenforces from the deck. If you had trouble especially summoning or searching the Sage Soravis, this was especially from the deck. But also you can just add them to the hand. For example, the Saphira upgrade to do the ritual summon, which is nice as well. 2 Talents, 2 Prosperity, 2 Ultimate Slayer. This is one of my favorite spell cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! One of my top 5 cards in the game, actually. So I'm just excited to be playing this again. This feels like a good enough reason to do it. If we have, for example, Grand Guigno as a target, Lulu-Willith as a target, Bucephalus, Herald, Entis, Garura, way too many options to not try this card out. And of course, if you want to play a more refined version, I do think you should just run more simple things like Super Poly, the Super Poly package, Prosperity at 3, Talents at 3, Thrust, things like that. But I just want to go a step further, make it a little bit more interesting. Good stuff, hand traps. And here is the funny, weird, wacky package, which seems to work really well, and I don't miss the consistency that it does kind of drop. Again, because Matrix can send Herald, which is not once per turn, to search for a ritual monster or spell. Matrix can send Lulu-Willith, and then when you summon Zoa, rip cards from their hand and extra deck. In the end phase, summon Cartesia. Cartesia will fusion summon Guigno, and the Guigno is just a nice special summon into something like Proskenian. which is actually a pretty decent game finisher. If you're noticing too many non-fusion boss monsters, let's bring out Curtis instead. You can actually loop Lulu-Lilith and Gwigno. If you didn't know, you can actually freely special Lulu-Lilith from the extra deck with Gwigno. So if you can run a second copy, that's definitely possible. But at some point, the extra deck does get tight here. You know, we have to play Typhon, of course. Bucephalus is for the Nadir servant, is for Garura, and then Access Card for the game, which you don't rarely, if ever, go into. But I feel like you have to play it if you have a generic extra deck. SP Little Knight, 1 Dynamondo, which this card is insane. I see a lot of end boards end on this card, and then in the opponent's draw phase, they'll tag it out for the Skull Guardian Retrain Ritual, and then Novox will special again. But I feel like in that window where you're doing that, where you don't have the Omni-Negate, that's where they'll break your board. I would love to see this as a super rare in an OTS. That would be great. We can always link away the Novox into Linkuriboh, into Secure Gardener, and then Maximus is full combo. And then just a nice little side deck for the meta at the moment. Nothing too special. Grisaya Prison is a nice ritual tech. There are actually some sweet ritual spells you can banish from grave and have second effects, like the Super Soldier Ritual, which can special the Blackluster Soldier Ritual from hand by banishing a light and dark. I believe the Drytron one also has a special effect, and there are some other ones too. So there you go, guys. That is my Silenforc deck profile. Let's move on to the combos. I'll show you what you can expect when you play this deck. Okay, guys, simple one-card combo plus normal summon Novox. It's going to place the continuous spell or trap onto the SD zone. This also plays your anti-spell. Keep that in mind because you're not activating, you're placing. This card will search our Saphira. By searching this, it's going to set up the Skull Guardian Ritual Monster, so you don't need to worry. Also send the Silenforc Prayer to the graveyard, add the Skull Guardian Retrain. If we only play one prayer and we hard draw it, that does stop the Saphira line, which is actually quite awkward, so keep that in mind. By banishing the Wise Saphira, tributing Novox as the whole tribute, summoning Skull Guardian in the most safest zone in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is this one, by the way. A nice little chain block, although they would have Ash Blossomed already. Maybe you do the other way around if you want to protect from Bell. Maybe is that something you do. And though, yeah, we get to sap the Omni-Negate by having Novox in the field. Now we have the attack boost as well. Now, unfortunately, we don't have another spell, so we can, you know, hard summon the Sage Saravis. But this is typically what you would add, assuming another spell is activated, as you do have to shuffle 2 from the hand or graveyard into the deck, including a ritual spell. But instead, you know, for just combo purposes, I think let's just add something easier, like the Odd Eyes Pendulum. It's entirely up to you what you want to add. We can actually just leave the board exactly where it is. Or we can go one step further and summon Dynamondo, which is going to sub the trap card as well, which is actually pretty cool. So let's not do the effect on summon. Let's go to the end phase. Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph's effect will work. Adding the Ritual Soul back to our hand, or the Dogmatica Matrix. So some nice follow-up if you plan to play even generic ritual stuff in your Novox deck, which is, I think, is quite cool. Gives a lot of flexibility and creativity. Let's add that to hand. Let's bounce Pendulum Graph to the hand. And then on the opponent's turn, you know, first action, we want to make sure we can resolve our Dynamondo. Special summon Skull Guardian. And then after we special summon Skull Guardian, Novox will trigger because a Light Warrior Dragon Ritual special summon to special itself. When specialed, we'll place the trap card. And there we go, guys. That is a pretty nice end board for what you can expect playing this as a one-card combo. Okay, so now we're on the opponent's turn. Let's say first action after the main phase or standby phase, whatever. You know, we can actually activate this card, Authority. We can special the Sage monster. Let's add the prayer back into the deck. Let's special this guy. And then the second the opponent wants to do any kind of action, we're going to chain with the Saravis to special any Skull Guardian type monster from the deck. So let's bring out Saravis himself. Pretty nice end board just for one card combo. We have a potential Sword Soul Blackout. We have an Omni-Negate 4100. These guys cannot be targeted. You have to attack Skull Guardian. You have Barry when it comes back to your turn. So it's a ticking time bomb for the opponent. And then we have Saravis that we set up. We had Pendulum Graph that we searched. We had Saravis himself. Let's move on to the next combo. I'm going to show you guys Divine of the Herald, what that card can do and why we actually play as well. Next combo is with Divine of the Herald. I'm going to show you guys what you can do with this card and why it is a second option as the Novox. Novox is, of course, a 3-of. We can't have 6 copies. So we send Trias Hierarchia, and then as a quick effect, it will be able to tribute a fairy on the field to special summon, and that's what we care about, is just the tributing. But of course, this is a level 9. It also helps us to ritual summon, which is quite nice. We get to summon the Novox from deck with Herald's effect to special level to a low fairy, place the continuous spell down, and then just like we saw in the one card combo before, and then from here we can just go ahead and ritual summon. On the off chance when you tribute Novox, the opponent has a response. The Omni-Negate is not set up until Novox is on the field. You can play a little bit more safer, and you can actually just tribute Hierarchia for the Novox card. And there we go. We got to the same thing with Herald. And of course, Tri-Star Wrecker is actually a quick effect tribute. So this will dodge things like Impa Morvela on the Novox or on the Diviner. If you already hard draw Trias, you can send Herald with Diviner and Herald with Search as well. So there we go, guys. 2 1-card combos you can play this deck. Some other cards you can run are Preparation and Pre-Preparation of Rites. You can add a ritual spell and a ritual monster from the deck to the hand. Pretty good alternative as well, to be honest. If you don't want to go as far as summoning something like Dogmatica Albazoa. I'm actually surprised there's so much non-engine in this. Kind of worrying at the same time, but you know, that is of course up to you how consistent you want to make it. I'm even considering running a Kashtira package just because I can, and because they're level 7, I can actually low-key get away with it. I can even freely normal summon Soravis, which is a level 7, and we don't really need the extra deck. So actually, the more I think about it, that might be a fun idea. And there we go, guys. That has been the Voiceless Voice Silenforc archetype releasing in Phantom Nightmare. We will be the best ritual deck of 2024. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments down below. Are you excited to play this deck? Is this the next meta deck you're planning to play? I know it is for me. And that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one.